The musty smell of old cardboard and cleaning supplies filled my nostrils as I sat on a rickety folding chair in the storage room of Patel Industries headquarters. Through the thin wall, I could hear the muffled voices of my relatives in the boardroom, discussing the fate of our family's textile empire. "At least they gave you a chair this year," muttered my cousin Priya, who was seated beside me on an overturned bucket. "Last year I had to stand." I smiled at her, adjusting my simple cotton kurta. At 32, I was considered one of the junior members of the Patel family, unworthy of a seat at the main table where the real business happened. My Uncle Rajesh's booming voice carried through the wall. "The situation is dire. We need solutions, not excuses." 20 minutes later, the storage room door opened. My Aunt Kamini peered in with barely concealed disdain. "You junior members can come in now. Stand at the back and stay quiet." As we filed into the boardroom, I saw the familiar scene. The massive mahogany table surrounded by the family elders, their faces grim. My uncles Rajesh and Dinesh sat at the head, flanked by their wives and eldest sons. The worthy descendants. As I was saying, Uncle Rajesh continued, not even acknowledging our presence, "We're facing bankruptcy within 3 months unless we secure immediate funding." My cousin Arjun, Rajesh's pride and joy with his MBA from Harvard, stood up importantly. "I've prepared a presentation on cost-cutting measures." "Cost-cutting?" Uncle Dinesh slammed his hand on the table. "We need millions, not savings from firing a few workers." I listened as they bickered, each proposing increasingly desperate measures. Selling off prime retail locations. Massive layoffs. Even talks of accepting a buyout offer from our competitor that would essentially gut the company. Finally, I cleared my throat. "I have a solution." The room turned to stare at me. Aunt Kamini's lip curled. "Mira, dear, this is serious business. Not the time for your optimistic ideas." I said junior members should stay quiet. Uncle Rajesh barked. I stood up straighter. "As your 70% investor, I have a solution." The silence was deafening. Uncle Dinesh laughed nervously. "Very funny, Mira. This isn't the time for jokes." I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app, projecting it onto the presentation screen. The account balance showed 500 Indian rupees crores. 3 months ago, when you were desperately seeking investors, you used a shell company to hide the true state of finances. Sterling Investments LLC, that's me. Jaws dropped around the table. "Impossible," Arjun sputtered. You're a teacher." "Part-time," I corrected. "By choice." Let me rewind and explain how a public school math teacher became the majority owner of a family business that had systematically excluded her for over a decade. I'm Mira Patel, the daughter of the failed brother, my father, Suresh Patel. While his brothers built the family textile business, my father pursued his passion for mathematics and became a professor. The family branded him a failure, a black sheep who chose books over business. "Such a waste," they'd say at every gathering. "All that intelligence, and he teaches children for peanuts." When Papa died 10 years ago, the vultures circled immediately. His shares in the family business, a mere 5%, were all he left us. My uncles offered to help by buying them for a fraction of their value. "What will you do with shares, Beta?" Uncle Rajesh had said condescendingly. "You need money for your education. Let the men handle business." But Papa had taught me more than just mathematics. He'd taught me to see patterns, to understand the flow of money like equations waiting to be solved. I kept the shares and watched. I learned. While my cousins flaunted their MBAs and foreign degrees, I quietly completed my mathematics PhD, specializing in quantitative finance. By day, I taught high school algebra. By night, I traded cryptocurrency and stocks, turning my small inheritance into a fortune. The family never knew. At every gathering, they'd pat my head patronizingly. "Poor Mira," they'd whisper, following in her father's footsteps. "At least she's not married yet, not a burden on some poor man." I let them believe it. Their condescension was my camouflage. 3 months ago, when Patel Industries hit serious financial trouble, they quietly sought investors. They were careful to hide it from the extended family, couldn't let the junior members know how badly the seniors had mismanaged things. But I knew. I'd been tracking the company's decline for years, watching as ego-driven decisions and nepotism slowly destroyed what my grandfather built. When they started seeking investors through private channels, I was ready. Sterling Investments LLC was incorporated in Singapore, layered through enough legal structures that they'd never trace it back to their poor teacher niece. I offered them exactly what they needed: immediate capital injection with seemingly minimal interference. They jumped at it, signing away 70% equity for the cash they desperately needed to stay afloat. The due diligence was laughably poor. Arjun, the Harvard MBA, had assured everyone he'd verified everything. Now, standing in that boardroom watching their faces cycle through shock, disbelief, and horror, I felt a decade of dismissal and condescension crystallizing into this single moment. "Check the contracts," I said calmly, pulling out a folder. "Signed by you, Uncle Rajesh. And you, Uncle Dinesh. Witnessed by your lawyers. Sterling Investments LLC owns 70% of Patel Industries." But, Aunt Kamini stammered. "You're nobody. You're just Suresh's daughter." "Yes," I agreed. "Suresh's daughter. The man you all mocked for choosing education over easy money. The man whose mathematical genius you never recognized because it didn't come with a business suit." Uncle Rajesh's face had turned an alarming shade of purple. "This is fraud. We'll sue." "On what grounds?" I asked mildly. "That you didn't do proper due diligence? That you were so desperate you didn't verify your investor? Please do sue. I'm sure the board of directors will be fascinated to learn how carelessly you handled this transaction." "The board," Dinesh started. "Which I now control," I interrupted. 70% ownership comes with certain privileges." Arjun, still trying to process, pulled up his laptop. "This can't be legal. There must be some mistake." "No mistake," I said. "Though I understand your confusion. After all, you did tell everyone last Diwali that I'd never understand real business because I wasted my brain on teaching." Priya, still standing with the other junior members, started giggling. It was infectious. Soon several of the younger cousins were trying to suppress their laughter. "Enough!" Rajesh roared. "What do you want?" "Money. Is this blackmail?" "Blackmail?" I shook my head. "I'm your investor. I'm here to save the company. But there will be changes." I clicked to the next slide on my phone, showing a detailed restructuring plan I'd been developing for 3 years. First, the board of directors will be restructured. Merit-based positions only. No more automatic seats for eldest sons. I looked pointedly at Arjun, whose position was purely nepotistic. Second, we're pivoting from traditional textiles to sustainable, tech-integrated fabrics. I've already secured partnerships with 3 major international brands interested in our eco-friendly production methods. "Eco-friendly?" Uncle Dinesh scoffed. "That's Western nonsense." "That's the future," I corrected. "And it's projected to triple our revenue within 18 months. I continued through my presentation, outlining plans for employee profit sharing, skills development programs, and expansion into emerging markets. The room remained silent, watching their poor teacher, niece, systematically outline how to save their empire. "This is ridiculous," Aunt Kamini finally burst out. "You can't just walk in here and take over. What do you know about running a business?" "More than the people who nearly bankrupted it," I replied coolly. "But you're right, I don't want to run it. I want to fix it, which is why I'm appointing Priya as interim CEO." Everyone turned to stare at my cousin, still standing by the storage room door. "Me," Priya squeaked. "You," I confirmed. "MBA from IIM Ahmedabad, 5 years experience at McKinsey, and the only person in this room who actually read the financial reports I've been sending anonymously for the past 2 years. Priya's eyes widened. "That was you. The concerned shareholder reports." "Every quarter," I nodded. "And you're the only one who tried to implement the suggestions. Your department is the only profitable division left. This is insanity." Rajesh stood up, his chair scraping loudly. "I won't stand for this coup." "It's not a coup," I said patiently. "It's capitalism. You needed money. I had money. You sold majority shares. I bought them. Simple mathematics." "But why?" Dinesh asked, genuinely bewildered. "Why would you do this?" For the first time, I let my emotion show. Because this company is my grandfather's legacy too. Because my father's 5% shares meant something to him, even when you all said he was worthless. Because every family gathering, you made us sit in storage rooms and hallways like servants while you made decisions that destroyed what he built. I looked around the room at the cousins still standing at the back. Because talent isn't genetic. It doesn't pass only to eldest sons. It doesn't require a penis or a foreign degree. Sometimes it comes from a public school teacher who learned to see numbers the way her father taught her. So what now? Kamini asked weakly. You fire us all? No, I said. Those who want to stay can stay. But you'll earn your positions. No more automatic promotions for family. No more inflated salaries for doing nothing. You want to eat at the big table? Prove you deserve the seat. And if we refuse? Rajesh challenged. I shrugged. Then I'll buy your remaining shares at market value, and you can enjoy early retirement. Your choice. The room erupted in arguments, accusations, and pleas. I sat down in what used to be Rajesh's chair and waited. Priya came to stand beside me, still looking stunned. You planned this for years, she said quietly. Papa always said the best equations take time to balance, I replied. One by one, the reality sank in. Some relatives stormed out, vowing legal action they knew they couldn't win. Others, particularly the younger generation, started asking genuine questions about the restructuring plans. Arjun surprised me. After the initial shock wore off, he approached hesitantly. Your sustainability pivot. I actually wrote a thesis on that at Harvard. No one here would listen. I know, I said. I read it. Downloaded it from your LinkedIn. It's good work. Want to lead that division? His face lit up. You trust me? After everything. I trust talent, I corrected. Prove you're more than your father's name, and the job is yours. By evening, the boardroom had transformed. The old guard sat deflated at one end, while the younger generation eagerly discussed plans at the other. The storage room door stood open. No one would ever be banished there again. Uncle Rajesh finally approached me, his earlier bluster gone. Your father would be proud, he said quietly. I'm sorry. For all of it. Papa was proud, I corrected. He knew what I was building. Who do you think taught me about shell companies and equity structures? He may have chosen teaching, but he understood business better than any of you. We were fools, he admitted. No, I said. You were arrogant. There's a difference. Fools can't learn. You still can if you choose. The next morning, news of the takeover spread through the business community. Mystery investor saves Patel Industries ran headlines, speculating about the identity of Sterling Investments. I returned to my classroom Monday morning, teaching quadratic equations to 10th graders. During lunch, I video called into the board meeting where Priya was outlining the transformation timeline. Ma'am, why are you smiling? One of my students asked as I ended the call. Just remembering something my father taught me, I said. That every problem has a solution. Sometimes you just need the right formula. 6 months later, Patel Industries reported its first profitable quarter in 3 years. The sustainable fabric line had orders backed up for months. Employee satisfaction was at an all-time high. The company that had been weeks from bankruptcy was now an industry innovator. At the annual meeting, every family member had a seat at the main table. The storage room had been converted into a break room, with a small plaque by the door, in memory of Professor Suresh Patel, who taught us that wisdom comes in many forms. I still taught mathematics 3 days a week. The other days, I worked with Priya to build the company my grandfather would have wanted. One where merit mattered more than birthright, where innovation trumped tradition, and where no one was made to feel small because of their chosen path. Uncle Rajesh, who now headed our community outreach program, often said I'd saved the company. But he was wrong. Papa had saved it years ago when he taught a little girl that numbers never lie, that patience is a strategy, and that the best revenge against those who underestimate you is spectacular, undeniable success. The storage room where they'd made me sit became my favorite metaphor. They'd literally put me in a room full of old inventory and forgotten supplies, not realizing I was taking inventory of their failures and supplying myself with everything I needed to take over. How did you stay calm for so long? Priya asked one day. All those years of insults and dismissal? Papa used to say that in mathematics, you show your work at the end, not the beginning, I replied. They thought they were writing the equation. They didn't realize I was already at the solution. The family business thrived under its new structure. Those who adapted flourished. Those who couldn't let go of the old ways found comfortable retirement. And somewhere, I like to think Papa was smiling, knowing his failed legacy had saved them all. The next generation of Patels would grow up different. They'd know that power isn't inherited, it's earned. That wisdom doesn't only come with age or gender. That sometimes the person you dismiss to the storage room is the very person holding the key to your survival. And me? I kept teaching, kept building, kept proving that the best business strategy is often the simplest mathematical truth. Underestimate variables at your own risk. The equation had balanced perfectly. Thanks for watching. See you again in the next video. Stay stunned.